Hey everyone, this is Sam Warren with the Houston Chronicle, and I'm back with another Texans film review. This time, we're going to talk about what went wrong in Houston's final offensive and defensive possessions in its 18-15 loss to the Denver Broncos. Houston was aggressive and played to win while tied with Denver in the waning moments. The decision wasn't wrong, but how they executed it led them to lose. So let's get into it. First, we're going to talk about what would be the Texans' final offensive possession of the day. There were a couple of different ways that they could approach this. Tied 15-15 with a minute and 14 on the clock. They could go for the win with points, trying to get in the end zone for the first time that day, or at least get Ka'imi Fairbairn in field goal range to make his sixth kick of the day. They could also play for overtime, wasting the Broncos two timeouts and ensuring that Bo Nix doesn't have a chance to go down and give the Broncos a win in regulation. Or they could also do a little bit of both, try and score, and then if that doesn't work, make sure that the Broncos are using their timeouts and making sure that they don't have a chance to win in regulation. But the Texans were always playing for the points, as D'Amico Ryans and Davis Mills said post game. That was a really aggressive decision by Ryans and Mills and everybody involved, given that the Texans had punted on their previous five drives. But as Herm Edwards says, it's the NFL and you play to win the game. So that was a decision that D'Amico Ryans did not regret on Monday after the game. But what the Texans could regret is the way that they executed this drive and the way that they went about calling these plays. And that's going to start with this first play here. So what the Texans want to do in this aggressive decision is get the ball downfield with some quick passes, but also get to the sidelines to ensure that they're stopping the clock without having to use their timeouts. But the Texans are committed to this strategy to a fault on this first play because the Broncos are also ready for it. They're ready for a typical 2-minute scenario, and they play this very well in this situation. So what we're going to see is that the Texans are almost going to lose this game because they're too committed to getting out of bounds, making this play that is going to end up being targeting Christian Kirk on the slot out. And we see that the Broncos are ready for this because Jaquan McMillan, this nickel defender, is playing outside leverage. He's ready for any outbreaking route run by Christian Kirk to the sidelines. He's going to prevent him from either catching a ball, he's going to make a play on the ball, or he's going to make Davis Mills throw to somebody else. But Mills is too committed to the throw, and he ends up almost paying for it because of it. So we're going to see this route concept where this receiver is going to run off this outside defender, trying to clear up space for Christian Kirk. But as Kirk gets downfield with this vertical press, McMillan isn't stressed out by it at all. He's just sitting on Christian Kirk running this outbreaking route. He knows that that's what they want to do. So as Kirk makes his outbreak, Jaquan McMillan is going to just sit in his hip pocket, and then he's going to break with Kirk and really just get in a position to make a play on the ball if the throw comes that way. And it ends up coming that way, even though all the signs are there for Davis Mills not to throw this ball. He's committed to this first read and almost pays for it. So as we see Davis, he's just eyeing down Kirk this entire way. As he's making his break, he's not looking at McMillan. He just looks at this break. He sees the open space over here and thinks he's going to have it pass. But as we see, McMillan is ready for any ball that's on target to Kirk, and that's probably a pick six if this ball is on target. But thankfully enough for the Texans, the only reason that this isn't a pick six is because Davis Mills throws Christian Kirk too far out to the right. It puts him out of his reach. It also puts it out of McMillan's reach, and it's a incompletion on 1st and 10. But Texans too committed to this strategy, as we can see, because there's an open opportunity here for Davis Mills to hit Dalton Schultz over the middle on this stick route. That's probably either a first down or a gain of good yardage. It would keep the clock running, which the Texans don't want to do, but that's yards downfield and a big hit on first down. So let's just take another look at this from this other angle. As we see, Davis Mills is going to drop back. He's just committed to this right away. He's just taking his drop, trying to hit it in rhythm. Committed to Christian Kirk on this out route, but as we can see, McMillan's from this replay, McMillan is in position to make a play on the ball. He's in position the entire way. Davis Mills wasn't reading the defender in that outside leverage, and thankfully enough, it's a bad throw because otherwise this is probably a pick six and the Texans lose the game immediately. So now we're on to the second play of the series, and the Texans are still committed to trying to throw the ball to the sidelines to get out of bounds and stop the clock. As we'll see here, that Davis Mills throws this short out route to Jaden Higgins. He makes a diving catch. He gets out of bounds, gain of 4, clock stops. But this really just doesn't make sense in the scenario for the Texans. In any situation where the Texans are throwing the ball short of the line to gain, like they seem to be committed to doing, and they stay in bounds, the Broncos will be forced to call one of their two timeouts in this situation. They would have to call one of their timeouts to preserve time on the clock for a third down stop, getting the ball back and giving their offense a chance to have ample time to go down and score in regulation and win the game. By going out of bounds in this situation, the Texans are preserving the Broncos' chance to use one of those timeouts and keeping that in their back pocket. That could be a crucial time stopper for the Broncos offense if they don't get a third down here. So that's just giving away a free timeout to the Broncos offense by going out of bounds using this strategy. And it just really doesn't make a whole ton of sense on the Texans' part. So those mental blunders of throwing to the sidelines, getting out of bounds, stopping the clock, and not forcing the Broncos to use one of their two timeouts on second down makes this ensuing third down conversion for the Texans offense that much more important. But we'll see that they're just not able to come through with it. And then there's another mental mistake that concludes the Texans' day on offense and ends up being really critical in the outcome of this game. The Texans will entrust in Davis Mills to try and get this first down on 3rd and 6 with his arm, and they're going to try and do that by targeting Nico Collins down here on Broncos number 2 cornerback Riley Moss. And that's a matchup that the Texans should like and should be trying to go to in this situation. Nico Collins had already caught a 20-plus yard pass on Riley Moss in the first half of this game. Nico Collins was eating up kind of all of the Broncos secondary with Patrick Surtain, the reigning defensive player of the year, out of the game. He was having a big day through the first half. And that's that. Nico Collins is a Pro Bowl target, the type of guy that you want to go to on third down. But there's just not really a ton of creativity on this play for Nico Collins to get this ball. As we'll see, Nico is going to run this comeback route, and he's just kind of blanketed by Riley Moss the entire time in the situation. But if we go back and look at it just situationally, there's just not a whole ton for Nico Collins to do with this play call. The Broncos kind of know exactly what Nico is going to do in this situation just because of the way he's lined up and where he is on the field and the situation with Davis Mills back there at quarterback. So he tries to press inside. Riley Moss has, from the get-go, has this inside leverage. He's taking away any inside opportunity for Nico Collins to get across the face for Davis Mills to throw the ball, basically forcing anything for him to go to the outside. So he's taking away a big majority of the field already, putting Nico Collins in a bad situation. That's not what ends up being Nico Collins' route, but he tries to give him a little bit of inside push to open up some stuff to the outside. But Riley Moss just really doesn't allow any of that to happen. He's in this situation where he's going to play this inside leverage, take away this inside lane the entire time. And then he just knows, Davis Mills is not going to throw a go ball on a 3rd and 6. So this press vertical really just doesn't do anything to Riley Moss. He's able to sit in that hip pocket. And then eventually when Nico Collins makes that break, he can't break inside because he's playing that inside leverage. He has to break outside. Davis Mills has to make this outside throw to Nico Collins, which the Broncos are trusting a backup quarterback's not going to be able to make that throw. And Riley Moss is just really tight in coverage here on this break with the comeback. So Davis Mills just doesn't have that much to make on this play. And this is just kind of telling of what the Texans offense was in the second half. Nico Collins had 7 catches for 75 yards in the first half, but then he had 2 targets and 0 catches in the second half. And that really stagnated the Texans offense. And speaking with DeMeco Ryans on Monday, asking him what went wrong with Nico Collins in the second half, he really said that the Texans needed to find better ways of getting him the ball, putting him in better situations to get him the ball and give him catches. And this is an example of a play call that just doesn't put Nico Collins in a good situation. It's obvious what the Texans are trying to do. It doesn't give him, that much deception in his route. They're not helping him in this situation get him the ball or helping Davis Mills in this situation try and have this throw and convert to his best option. So taking away his first read just kind of through the play call and the Broncos defense kind of being able to see the telegraphing of what they're going to run. But there's a bunch of other routes on this play. So let's see where else Davis Mills can go to. His next option is maybe this check down here as he's coming down to from Nico Collins in his read. But as we'll see, whether this is an option route or with Woody Marks either able to go inside or outside, it's unsure. But if it is an option route, Woody Marks needs to go inside on this play because of the outside leverage that Talanoa Hufanga is playing here. He just kind of gets covered up. really doesn't have anything to throw to. But as we'll see, if we just dive back now into the backfield, Davis Mills really doesn't have that much opportunity to make a play after moving off of Nico Collins, because by the time he doesn't make this throw, Zach Allen is in the backfield because, as we'll see, he's just going to make this swim move here on Laken Tomlinson and really just get in the grill of Davis Mills. So that sends Davis Mills on a scramble here, and this is where the ultimate mental mistake comes in here for this Texans offense. With Davis Mills kind of under pressure here, he's going to try and get the ball out, try and make something happen. He wants to try and get this first down if he can, and ensure that the Texans offense keeps going and doesn't give the ball back to the Broncos defense. But he sees Dalton Schultz here kind of open. He's just going to throw this ball, try and make something happen, but it kind of just goes fleeting into the ground. That is the mental mistake that Davis Mills could not make in this situation. With the Broncos still having 2 timeouts, they're going to get the ball back. Not ensuring that Dalton Schultz even gets the first down in this situation, or he can complete the pass. The Texans offense is able to give the Broncos defense the ball back with 2 timeouts and almost a minute left on the clock because Davis Mills throws this ball. By just taking the sack from Zach Allen, the Broncos would have to use one of those timeouts, and that would take away a precious opportunity for the Broncos to stop the clock with the ball back. So by Davis Mills throwing this ball, he just gives the Broncos more opportunities to go down and win this game. So there were just a bunch of different things on this drive that did not go right because of execution in those situations, just kind of play calling mistakes and not a whole ton of creativity, but mostly of all, just kind of mental blunders by Davis Mills and the team in this situation, getting out of bounds and not kind of forcing the Broncos' hand and using those timeouts, giving them the ball back and able to stop the clock. The Texans offense does not set up the Texans defense in this situation to be successful in that, even though they're being aggressive and trying to get downfield to score points. Because they're not able to score points, they really put their defense in a hole in the ensuing drive. But this game is still not over. The Texans defense has a chance to stop the Broncos from scoring in regulation, sending this to overtime. They probably have a pretty good chance at doing that. Texans defense had been stout all afternoon, and they had also been really good in the second half, stopping the Broncos on 6 of their 7 drives, 2 punts, preventing scores on those 6 drives. So the Texans probably have a pretty good chance at being preventing the Broncos from scoring here, but they are unable to make that happen in the most crucial moment kind of the game for the Texans defense. And they do that because of some mental and some execution mistakes that kind of carried over from the Texans offense. So what we'll see is that starts kind of here on this first play from scrimmage for the Broncos offense on this drive. And the Broncos will run kind of this eye candy motion from RJ Harvey, which ultimately gets him going for this swing screen pass that's going to go out here with Adam Troutman, the tight end, being a blocker, this receiver being out here for a blocker. But what we'll key in on here first is Azeez Al-Shaair doesn't really fall for any of that eye candy. He's ready. He kind of flows down, sees this from the start, going out to RJ Harvey on the screen pass. Looks like from this situation, he can kind of get there, maybe even make a tackle in the backfield for a loss. And that would be a big momentum play for this Texans defense to start this drive. But Azeez just kind of doesn't make the right angle on this tackle. He allows Harvey to get upfield, and ultimately Harvey is going to be able to swim his tackle here. But let's go back and take a look at some of the other defenders on this play. The next defender in here is Henry To'oTo'o, who ultimately just kind of gets washed out of this play by Troutman. And when Azeez isn't able to come and make that tackle, you would hope that the next linebacker is going to be here, be able to stop him for no gain. But Henry's just kind of washed out of this play. So that just opens up a lane a little bit for RJ Harvey. But the best execution on this play probably is Kamari Lassiter here, kind of swimming this block from Trent Sherfield here, and getting to the outside lane. And why that's so important on this play is because Harvey is trying to run down the sideline and get out of bounds, preventing the Broncos from having to use a timeout. But by Kamari taking this outside lane, he's forcing Harvey to run up further from the sidelines, not be able to get out of bounds just immediately, and keeping him, hopefully in the field of play, preventing the clock from stopping. And that by Kamari taking this outside lane, that allows Kalen Bullock to come down from his high safety post and be in position to make this tackle here. So he's this guy. This is the most crucial tackle of the play, given that Azeez is out of the play. Kalen needs to be able to bring down RJ Harvey in bounds here, but he's just not able to do that. Kalen just goes for the tackle, allows RJ Harvey to bounce off of him and go out of bounds. And that's just execution that the Texans can't have in this scenario. They had multiple chances to bring RJ Harvey down in bounds, make the clock continue to roll, or make the Broncos use one of their 2 timeouts. And they're just not able to do that. So that's just bad execution from the Texans defense on the first play. So let's just think about some of the time management mistakes that have occurred on the previous few plays. If the Texans keep the ball in bounds, keep the clock running on that second down play, then the Broncos are likely forced to use their first of their 2 timeouts. Then if Davis Mills just takes the sack instead of throwing the ball at Dalton Schultz's feet on third down, then the Broncos are likely forced to use their second timeout. And they would end up in this situation on offense again with no timeouts, no ability to stop the clock going forward. And then if we go back to that RJ Harvey play for the Texans' first play on defense, if they're able to bring him down in bounds like they had multiple chances to do, then the Broncos don't have this chance to reset, call this creative play call for Bo Nix to give him a big opportunity to make a big play and ultimately puts the Broncos in a situation to win this game. So what we'll see here is kind of some creativity that the Texans succumb to, make some mistakes, and can't execute. Ultimately, this is the play that loses the Texans the game. So what we'll see is it's a 2nd and 7. Bo Nix is going to take this shotgun snap, and he's going to roll right on this play call. And the Texans do a good job of making sure that all these options downfield are taken away. They're in this zone coverage. This isn't too much of a threat for this team. But Bo Nix is going to have the ability to have time to think here and reset his feet and make a decisive decision because of the way this Broncos offensive line is able to handle this Texans pass rush. As we'll see over here, the Broncos are able to easily win in double teams on this backside. Danielle Hunter splits the inside here on left tackle Garrett Bowles, but he's just washed out of this play by the left guard, kind of pushed out. Doesn't really make a difference here. Then we'll see Tim Settle, the defensive tackle, also kind of get washed out of this play, just kind of left behind. And then if we kind of look at this is not characteristic of Will Anderson, who's having a really good season, but he's kind of handled by a tight end in Adam Troutman here. So that's just not good execution by Will Anderson. The Texans would expect him to win this matchup 10 out of 10 times, be able to get after the quarterback, but he's not able to here. So by not having these options downfield to throw to, Bo Nix ends up deciding to go ahead and scramble. And that should, the Texans are hoping that one of these guys can get home to, disrupt that a little bit more. But they do have a safety blanket in Sheldon Rankins back here, who, as we can see from his kind of pursuit, not really pursuing Bo Nix this far in the backfield, he's sort of playing a QB spy look, as we would see, kind of waiting for the quarterback to take off and scramble, get upfield, and being that line of defense to prevent the quarterback from getting downfield into open space. But what we'll see from Rankins is he kind of just commits too far to this QB rollout. And as he does that, that just opens up this huge lane for Bo Nix to run through. With everything kind of rolling over to this right side, Nix just has all this green grass to run through, and he ends up getting this big gain, putting the Broncos in field goal range for Will Lutz. So, the Broncos are able to have that time to draw up something creative. Bo Nix makes a great play, and the Texans defensive line just can't execute either in getting home or managing their operation in their responsibility with the quarterbacks with Sheldon Rankins there. So that scramble was really a killer for the Texans defense. It puts the Broncos on the opposite side of the 50, probably puts them in field goal range for Will Lutz, who's had one of the biggest legs in the NFL this season. But it's still not a chip shot for Lutz. So the Texans still have a chance here, but There's just some lacking execution on these final few plays that really makes it a lot easier for Lutz to ice this game. And that comes on the ensuing play by, another rough play for who we'll see is Sheldon Rankins here. The Broncos are going to run uh, this handoff play to the right here, and Rankins is just kind of manhandled by Mike McGlinchey up here, just kind of washed away in run blocking. And what that also does is that's going to affect Aziz Al-Shire, pretty much the primary second level defender coming through this gap on the play. And that pushes him back, kind of taking him out of the play. And that allows Adam Troutman also to get up to him, taking away that second level defender. And then from there, we'll see Will Anderson not really able to shed this block. Jalen Petrie taken by this pulling guard here. And J.K. Dobbins is just kind of be able to split the two. And without that second level defense, Dobbins is able to take this up for another big gain. And that definitely puts the Broncos in field goal range for Will Lutz. So that's another killer by some inexecution, some lacking aggressiveness by this Texans defense in this killer situation. And then lastly, we're going to see some more lagging execution on the final play that sets up Lutz's kick. So let's focus on Danielle Hunter here and what he does on this designed run by Bo Nix that gets outside. So watch Hunter. The Broncos are going to pull left tackle Garrett Bowles to go outside. Nix is going to wash outside as well. So Hunter, seeing the left tackle kind of start to pull, he's going to take this inside lane, but he allows himself to get washed inside by Cortland Sutton, a receiver. So maybe there's a little bit of a hold here, but Danielle Hunter should not be getting held up by a receiver when he's trying to get to a quarterback in the backfield. Danielle Hunter needs to get back there and make that play, or he needs to take a better angle and make sure that he's not going to get washed out by a player that should not be able to handle him in run blocking. So that by him getting washed inside, that makes him lose contain. Nix is able to get upfield. That makes this a really easy kick by him getting it around the 15. And also, the Broncos are able to wipe down the clock to 3 seconds for Will Lutz to come down, make the field goal with no time left. We harken back to the time management issues from earlier. The Broncos would not have that opportunity if the Texans just executed in offensively in some situations and made the Broncos use those timeouts. The Broncos would not have a timeout to call with no time left, letting Will Lutz to kick through the uprights to win the game, making sure that the Texans don't get the ball back, and he's able to take his time with the kick. If they're just able to execute correctly, use kind of situational awareness in those plays and make the Broncos use those timeouts. So just kind of the Texans offense hurting the Texans defense in this situation. Texans defense didn't execute either, but a lot of things went wrong in those final minute and 14 seconds that just ultimately ends up losing the Texans this game. So again, D'Amico Ryans did not regret being aggressive in that final offensive drive. He played to win the game, and that was probably the right decision in that scenario. It's the NFL. You want to go down and win that game in regulation. But he's got to regret a little bit the way that his team executed in that situation, whether it was situational awareness with the time management, whether it was just not really being able to draw up creative play calls to get his good players open, kind of being obvious in a couple of scenarios where the Broncos were able to make plays on the ball, take away top options, and just kind of stagnate the Texans offense, or just kind of overall execution with making some bad throws, and then also defensively, just not being able to do the jobs that they needed to do to make a stop there. So it's another one score loss for this Texans team, but it's a really heartbreaking one given the way that they kind of hung around the entire game, played through some injuries with C.J. Stroud and Titus Howard on offense, and hung around with a really good Broncos team. But again, the Texans have lost all of their 5 losses this year have been one score losses. So at some point, the Texans have to execute in those crucial moments, and this final minute and 14 seconds was kind of just an example of where the Texans have gone wrong this season. So thank you so much for watching this week's edition of my film review. If you would, please go take a look at my full written version of my film review on HoustonChronicle.com, where I dive deep into these plays. Again, just kind of give my written breakdown. And I appreciate you guys following along. So please let me know what you think. Anything else you want me to break down. And I look forward to doing this again next week. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.